Welcome back to my train room. For this week's episode, I'd like to walk you through a simple one evening project. Well, actually, I say one evening, I spread it over 2 evenings. That's simply because I didn't have a whole evening available to me. But anyway, the total modelling time was somewhere in the region of about 3 hours. So certainly it can be done in a single session. Anyway, without further ado, let's get right into the project. Here we have 2 pulpwood flats, both modified from Tichy flat car kits. Here's one load that I made some time ago, shortly after I built the cars, but the other one has been running empty for over a year now. Anyway, I thought now would be a good time to rectify that problem. Oh, hi there. I've just been harvesting the raw materials in my backyard. Let me get to my bench and get set up, and I'll be right back. The main tool needed for building this load is this chopper, which you've seen before. I'm only going to use the bits that are fairly straight, and I'm going to discard the rest. And I'm going to cut them to just over a scale 8 feet long. There will be a little bit of shrinkage. And I just keep going until I fill the bucket. They don't all have to be exactly the same length, as long as they're close. Some of the pulpwood loads that I have seen on other layouts are really overscale, with logs several feet in diameter. The tendency is to use wood that is too big because it goes a lot faster, so concentrate on trying to keep it as small as possible. Anyway, I am not going to bore you by having you sit here and watch me chop several thousand logs, so I'm just going to turn the camera off and I will check in with you when I'm done. Okay, well, I've chopped all this wood up into scale 8 foot lengths. There's a lot more here than I need just for this one load, but I'm also going to need another pile of wood in the yard eventually, so I chopped the whole thing up. Now what I'm going to do is build the load. So that I don't glue it to the car, I'm going to make myself a paper shield. I lay the car down on a piece of paper, make a couple of pencil marks to get 2 lines the right distance apart, and then I've marked it out. I've put check marks on it, same distance apart as the width of the car deck, and then I'm going to cut these like that, and the other side. And there we have a shield that fits over the car, so I can now make the load exactly the right size without gluing it in place. Okay, I could have just gone straight into the assembly process straight after chopping the wood. They were a lot greener 2 days ago when I chopped them. Over time they will shrink. All wood does that as it dries out, and the load will get smaller, and then I just have to come back and fill in the end. If I was really patient, I would leave them for a couple of years before continuing, but I'm way too impatient for that, so I just go straight into building them. Some of the logs have little pips on the side that I just have to trim off. And what I'm going to do is just build it up to the height of the ends, staying as straight as I can. Some of the logs have better coloration than others, so what I do is make sure I save some of the really nice colours for the top row. Let's just tip some out. See, a lot of them are a lot too red to really look good, whereas most real bark is more grey, like this one. So that's a good example of one that I'm going to save for the top. I'm going to start by putting a bead of glue down the middle of the paper. And I'll just start piling in the wood. Where I have curved logs, I try to get the curves all the same way so that they sit as tight together as possible. And some of these are a little on the large side, but I'm not too worried about it. As long as most of the wood is less than a scale foot in diameter, I'm reasonably happy. I've visited some layouts where their pulpwood is mostly 2 to 3 scale foot diameter, which just does not look right. Once the majority of the glue is covered, it's time to come back and put another row in. I'm sure you don't want to sit there and watch me build the thing all the way up, so I will turn the camera off for a bit and I'll be right back. When you get nearly at the top, it's time to dig out the logs that you saved with the really nice colour on them. But the top row, I don't want to put a great bead of glue down the middle of the load because some of it will bleed through. So what I'm going to do now is put glue on a tray and then dip them. The goal here is just to get glue on the underside of the middle of the log. Alright, I think I'm going to call that done. All I've got to do now is set it aside and let the glue go hard overnight. Well, here's my pulpwood load after I've left it overnight. Actually, the paper is still moist on the bottom because it didn't really have anywhere drying. But now what I'm going to do is tear off the paper. You see there's still uncured glue under there. But once I've got rid of the paper, that will then dry. Just leave it upside down on my workbench. Anyway, here's two other kinds of pulpwood loads that I've made. There's this one for the regular Athern car that has a ridge down the middle and in the end. To load this car, they would just fill the ends in and the first row with 4-footers. What I did was I just built some end frames out of basswood, and that goes in. It's a little bit loose because it shrank. I've already extended the ends once, but it needs doing again. Here's another one, this kind for a gondola. Start off by building bulkheads out of vertical logs. And I build that on a frame. This kind of load, the shrinkage doesn't seem to be a problem. As I say, this one I will have to come back in about a year's time and add some more logs to the ends. So with the completion of that load, we now have a total of 8 pulpwood loads, 2 each of 4 different kinds. We have 2 for the Tichy flat cars, we have 2 loads for the Athern flats, we have 2 loads for 40-foot gondolas, and 2 loads for 50-foot gondolas. I think that ought to be enough for a layout this size.